What happens when an acclaimed actress decides she's had enough of the games, the double standards, and the quiet disrespect that hides behind friendly smiles? What happens when she decides, right there on live television, that she's not going to play along anymore? It started like any other morning show interview. Bright lights, polished smiles, coffee mugs positioned just right for the camera. Catherine, known for her sharp wit and powerful performances, was there to promote her latest film, a project she'd poured her heart into. It was supposed to be a straightforward chat about her work, but it became something much bigger, something that would shake the entire industry. From the very beginning, you could sense a certain tension. The hosts smiled too widely, their tone just a little too rehearsed. Catherine answered politely at first, her professionalism unwavering. But then, slowly, the questions started to shift. They weren't about her film anymore. They were about her past, her relationships, the controversies she had worked for years to move beyond. Jenna, the lead host, leaned forward with a sympathetic expression that didn't quite reach her eyes. She said the audience loved Catherine's realness, that they wanted to hear about the tough times. It was the kind of question disguised as empathy but built to provoke. Catherine paused before answering, her eyes steady. She said she'd rather focus on the work, on what the film meant to her and to the team who made it. But Jenna pressed on. The tone turned just slightly patronizing, the way it often does when people think they're being kind but really just want a reaction. And that's when everything started to unravel. Catherine's posture changed. She leaned back, crossed her legs, and you could see the shift the moment she decided she wasn't going to let this slide. Her voice, calm but firm, cut through the air. She said this was exactly the problem with interviews like these, that no matter how accomplished a woman became, she could still be reduced to gossip. One of the other co-hosts jumped in, trying to smooth things over, insisting they were just doing their jobs, that audiences wanted to know the full picture. But Catherine's response was cutting. She said, if you wanted the full picture, you'd ask about my directing, about the scripts I'm developing, about the foundation I run. The full picture isn't controversial, it's the work. The studio went quiet. You could almost hear the tension humming through the air. Jenna tried to laugh it off, but Catherine didn't join her. The friendly atmosphere that morning shows depend on was gone. Then Jenna said the one thing she shouldn't have said. She told Catherine she was overreacting. The moment that word left her mouth, you could feel everything stop. The crew froze. The air thickened. Catherine's eyes locked onto Jenna's. Her tone dropped lower, colder. She repeated the word slowly, overreacting, as if tasting it. Then she said, that's the ultimate dismissal, isn't it? When a woman stands up for herself, she's overreacting. Would you say that to a man? Jenna's lips parted, but she didn't answer. There was nothing she could say. Catherine continued, each word measured but powerful. She said this was exactly the kind of gaslighting women in her industry faced constantly, being told to smile, to be gracious, to take disrespect and call it professionalism. She said she was done with that she wasn't going to participate in her own diminishment anymore. The studio was silent. Cameras still rolling. No one dared to yell cut. Then, slowly, Catherine reached for the small microphone clipped to her blazer. The movement was calm, deliberate. She unhooked it, placed it gently on the arm of her chair, and stood. Her heels clicked softly against the floor. The sound echoed like a countdown. Jenna's eyes widened. Please, she said, her voice cracking. We can work this out. You don't have to end it like this. Catherine looked at her, and for a moment, the disappointment in her eyes said everything. She said this was the problem, this idea that everything could just be worked out, that a few nice words could erase the disrespect baked into the system. She said this wasn't about this one interview. It was about what this interview represented. She said she was tired of sitting through conversations that pretended to celebrate women while undermining them. Tired of being told to laugh off questions that reduced her work to scandal. Tired of being treated like content instead of a person. The producer, a man in his 40s with a headset and clipboard, stepped forward. He said maybe they could take a break, regroup, Start over. Catherine turned toward him and asked if he had approved the questions. He said the hosts had creative control. She said, convenient. Everyone passes the blame, but no one takes responsibility. No one spoke. You could see it on their faces, the dawning realization that this wasn't going to be salvaged. Jenna's voice trembled. You're making this bigger than it is, she said. It's just one interview. Catherine shook her head. It's never just one interview, she said quietly. It's the same patterns, year after year. The same disrespect trapped in smiles. The same questions that strip away humanity for ratings. You think it's harmless, but it isn't. One of the co-hosts, the quiet one who had said little until now, spoke up softly. She said she understood what Catherine meant. That maybe they had been wrong in their approach. She asked what Catherine would have wanted instead, or what questions would have made this interview feel meaningful. For the first time since she stood, Catherine's expression softened slightly. She said she would have wanted questions about her character's arc, about the themes of the film, about her experience directing. She said she would have loved to talk about the stories she wanted to tell and the kind of industry she wanted to build. There are so many interesting things to talk about, she said. But you didn't choose that. The co-host nodded slowly, her face flushed with regret. But before the moment could deepen, Jenna spoke again, her tone defensive, brittle. She said the past was part of Catherine's story, that audiences connected with the full journey, even the hard parts. She said there was nothing wrong with asking about it. Catherine's jaw tightened. There's nothing wrong with asking, she said, but there's something wrong with how you ask. There's something wrong when you reduce a person to their pain. When you invite someone here under the pretense of celebrating their work, then blindside them with gossip. That's not journalism. That's exploitation. You could feel the weight of her words pressing down on everyone in that studio. Even the producer looked shaken. Jenna's eyes filled with tears. She said she was sorry, that she never meant to hurt Catherine, that she respected her. Catherine looked at her, but her expression didn't soften. She said, respect isn't something you claim, it's something you demonstrate. The words hit hard. The producer stepped closer, lowering his voice. He said they couldn't air something like these, or that it would be too controversial, too uncomfortable. Catherine gave a small, tired smile. She said, that's exactly the problem. Honesty is too risky. Authenticity is too messy. You'd rather protect the brand than tell the truth. Jenna looked torn, caught between her job and her conscience. She said she wanted to have that conversation, of the real one, the honest one. That maybe they could change. That maybe this could be the start. She asked what it would take for Catherine to stay. Catherine paused, thinking. When she spoke, her tone was calm, but unyielding. She said staying would require them to acknowledge what had happened to her on camera, to have a real discussion about why the questions had been problematic, to admit that they'd prioritized drama over respect. She said that if they were willing to have that conversation genuinely, without defensiveness, maybe there was something worth salvaging. The hosts looked at each other. You could see the fear in their eyes. This wasn't the kind of TV they knew how to make. Their show was built on comfort and smiles, not on uncomfortable truth. The producer shook his head. He said the network would never approve it. Sponsors wouldn't like it. Catherine nodded slowly. Then that's your answer, she said. The system matters more than the truth. Protecting the brand matters more than treating people with dignity. Jenna tried again. That's not fair, she said, tears spilling down her cheeks. We have constraints. We can't just Catherine interrupted gently. When did constraints become more important than doing what's right? The question hung in the air like a bell, ringing long after she finished speaking. No one could answer. Not Jenna, not the producer, not the quiet co-host who looked like she wanted to disappear. The silence was unbearable. Finally, the quiet co-host spoke again, her voice barely audible. She said Catherine was right, that they had been wrong, that they had made mistakes. She said she was sorry. Catherine nodded, acknowledging it, but didn't soften. She said apologies only meant something if they led to change. She said she had been in this business too long to mistake remorse for reform. This isn't personal, she said, at least not entirely. You're part of a broken system, one that rewards controversy and punishes substance, one that turns people into clickbait. You're victims of it too. But that doesn't absolve you. Change requires choosing integrity over comfort. Jenna, her voice breaking, asked, "What do you want us to do?" Catherine said she wanted them to think about what kind of television they were making, to ask themselves if it aligned with their values, to decide whether ratings were worth their integrity. Those are questions only you can answer, she said, but they need to be asked. The quiet co-host asked if Catherine thought it was possible to make good television or entertaining television while still treating people with respect. Catherine smiled faintly. Absolutely, she said. They're not mutually exclusive. Audiences are smarter than you think. They can handle nuance. They crave substance. The problem is, it's easier to create drama than meaning. It takes more effort to ask real questions, but it's worth it. Jenna nodded slowly. You could see something shift in her expression, a recognition of how badly they'd misjudged this. I wish we could do it over, she said softly. We do it differently. Catherine said they couldn't redo this moment, but they could learn from it. That's the real test, she said. Whether this moment changes anything about how you treat your future guests. Another co-host asked if Catherine would ever come back to give them another chance someday. Catherine hesitated, thinking, I don't know, she said. It depends on whether anything actually changes. I've heard all the promises before. But if I see you treating people differently, or if I see real respect, real substance, maybe I'll be watching. So will others. The producer looked like he wanted to speak, to defend himself, but Catherine raised a hand. I've said what I needed to say, she told him. The rest is up to you. She adjusted her purse on her shoulder, turned toward the exit, and began to walk. Her heels struck the studio floor in a steady rhythm, each step echoing in the heavy silence. Catherine, Jenna called after her, voice trembling. Please, I hope you know we do respect you. We really do admire your work. Catherine turned her head just slightly, not enough to face them fully. Then prove it, she said. Respect isn't words, it's action. And then she was gone. The studios stayed still. Cameras still rolling. The hosts frozen in their seats, the weight of what had just happened pressing down on everyone. The producer finally whispered, cut. But the damage was done. Or maybe, in a strange way, something necessary had begun. Because what Catherine said that morning didn't just end an interview, it started a conversation about integrity, about respect, about how women in the public eye are treated, and maybe, just maybe, that conversation mattered more than any film promotion ever could. So what do you think? Did this moment spiral because of one careless questioner, or because it exposed something deeper, something broken in how celebrity interviews are made? Maybe Catherine was right. Maybe sometimes walking away is the only way to make people finally listen.